Well, hi there, IELTS test takers. Today we're going to dive into the second part of the IELTS speaking test, and I'm going to break it down into easy to understand, but it's kind of like taking apart a puzzle and then putting it all together again. I'm your host, Nas, native English speaker, CELTA certified, and IELTS accredited with 12 years of international experience. Are you ready to dive into the topic? So, first things first, you really do need to understand the prompt. The prompt is like a treasure map, and you trying to figure out where X marks the spot. So, take a deep breath, take a moment, take a good look at the prompt, and try to understand what it's asking you to talk about. For example, if it says a time you had to wait for something, think about a time when you had to sit tight and wait for something exciting or important. This is really, really important. Take the time to read the prompt. A time when you had to wait for something. Past tense, so this happened in the past. You had to wait for something. It wasn't that you chose to wait for something. You had to, you were forced to, you were compelled to. For something, not for someone. And all of these keywords are really important in terms of coherence. Now, let's talk about structuring your answer. Think of your story like building a Lego castle. You start with the foundation, which is introducing what happened, the when, and then you add the bricks one by one to tell the whole story. I remember when I was in primary school, my principal always said, vocabulary and words are like bricks. The more you have, the better the building. So if you want to build a castle, invest in your bricks, invest in your vocabulary, learn vocabulary with precision. So let's talk about building our mega city. I mean, who needs a castle? Let's build a mega city. So first, talk about the beginning, then what happened, and finally how it ended. And use transition words like first, next, finally to keep your story in order, like a map leading to your treasure. And this will definitely help with coherence. Next up, use descriptive language. Now, you want to make your story pop like a colorful comic book. You want the examiner to take notice. So you want to use and you need to use a wide range of vocabulary, phrasal verbs, idioms, higher level vocabulary, synonyms. So use words that paint a picture in the listener's mind, like describing how you felt or what things looked like. So instead of saying, I waited a long time, you could say, it felt like time was crawling, or I couldn't sit still. I was so excited. See, more fun. Also, more vocabulary. Have you heard of time markers? These are like little signs along the road of your map that tell you where you are in your journey. So if you use words like first, that means you're starting out with your story. Then after a while, it transitions, it shows when things happened. It's like telling someone how to follow a map step by step so they don't get lost. And by using these time markers, you help people stay connected with you and with your story. And it's also a high level language function, and it is a language test. So I encourage you to use these time markers. So next, look what I just did. Next, we're going to talk about emotions and expressing emotions and reflections. Now, very often in the IELTS Speaking Part 2 test, the final prompt is and describe and explain how that made you feel. So it's time to show your feelings and your emotions. So tell your listener how you felt during your adventure, during your crisis, during this episode. Were you nervous? Were you excited? And maybe even bored? What I would do if I were you would be to create a list of the different emotions, synonyms for them, and one or two idioms. And in this series, in this course, on this channel, we're going to dive deep into idiomatic language. I really do recommend that you grab a notebook and you start organizing your vocabulary in a very structured way. Now, when you express your emotions, whether it's through phrasal verbs, idiomatic language, C1, C2 vocabulary, it lets the listener, and in this case, the examiner, peek into your heart and understand how you felt about the whole thing. It's very engaging. It's very native-like. And this is a speaking test, a language test that basically judges and assesses you compared to how a native speaker speaks. How close are you to native-like level? Also, when you discuss your emotions, you are able to use a wide range of vocabulary. And what about concluding? When you have to wrap things up, sum up your story by reiterating, by reminding the listener about what happened. And here's an opportunity to throw in some synonyms because you're not really thinking, you're kind of repeating, but in a very cool way, because now you can just focus on the language, synonyms, and even idiomatic language. Now let's look at the topic. Describe a time when you had to wait for something, when it was, what happened, why you had to wait, and describe how you felt while you were waiting. Now, I'm going to read out an answer, and you're going to tell me what you think that answer would score in terms of IELTS speaking. The other day, I had to wait for my friend at the bus stop. It was a pretty normal situation. I arrived at the stop on time, but my friend was running late. So I just stood there checking my phone and watching the cars. It felt like a long time. Eventually, my friend showed up. We caught the bus together. It was a typical wait at the bus stop. Nothing special. I was waiting for my friend. Think about this answer in terms of the prompt. What was the speaker asked to describe a time when he or she had to wait for something? Here he spoke about waiting for someone, his friend, okay. And then it got a little bit confusing because was he waiting for the something, the bus? Did he change his story halfway through? How was it in terms of coherence? You can rewind and check the vocabulary. Was there any vocabulary that you would classify as band 7, 8, or 9? I'd like to hear your thoughts and your comments. What score would you give to a test taker who provided that answer? Also, think in terms of the length of the answer. Allow me to share with you an experience that really highlights an occasion where I had to wait in anticipation for something. And it was a few years ago when I found myself eagerly awaiting the outcome of a scholarship application. Understandably, the stakes were high, as the scholarship would pave the way for my higher education. In the weeks leading up to the announcement, well, it felt like an eternity, each passing day filled with a mix of hope and apprehension. You know, I had prepared my application meticulously, pouring my heart and soul into every essay and recommendation letter. Yet, despite my best efforts, the outcome was uncertain, so it left me in a state of restless anticipation. As the fateful day approached, I found myself constantly refreshing my email inbox, eagerly awaiting any news. And phew, finally, the long-awaited email arrived. And with trembling hands, and I suppose even a tremor in my tummy, and I clicked the email open to reveal the outcome. So, to my utter and overwhelming joy and relief, I found that I had been awarded the scholarship. And the wave of emotions that washed over me in that moment was indescribable. It was a culmination of months of hard work and unwavering determination and endless waiting. So, looking back, the waiting period, though really difficult, taught me the value of patience and resilience in the face of uncertainty. It reinforced the importance of perseverance and unwavering faith in one's dreams. It was a poignant reminder that great achievements often require enduring moments of anticipation, dread, fear, and waiting. So, all in all, to sum up, it was a long wait. It wasn't easy, but in the end, all's well that ends well, right? Okay, so now my question to you is what grade, what score, what band would you give the second answer? And I would like you to rewind that section and make a note of the phrases, the vocabulary, maybe the transitions that prompted you to give the second answer a higher score than the first answer. Now we are going to watch a video that really dives deep into the topic of describe a time when you had to wait for something. This video will introduce you to advanced vocabulary as well as idiomatic language in a very structured, organized manner, really taking you through all of it very slowly, in a very, like I said, organized manner. I really do suggest that if you need to take a break at this point, you do so. Then grab a cup of coffee, tea, whatever suits your fancy, and a notebook, absolutely, a notebook and a pen, and jot down the phrases. And I would suggest that you do this for every single one of the difficult topics that we are working through, the topics that students hate, the topics that, they spend the night before the test praying that they don't get. And on the day of the test, they just like, please, 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 I don't want that topic. I don't want the topic about historic period. I don't want the topic about computer breaking down. I don't want a topic about a time I had to wait. I have nothing to say. Actually, you do have a lot to say. The thing is, you might not have the band 7, 8, and 9 vocabulary to say it, and that's where these videos come in. I'm here to help you talk about these topics in a way that will allow you to score band 7, 8, and 9. So please comment. Let me know which topics really drive you crazy, the topics that you really hate, and the topic that if you see in the exam, you just really want to get up and walk out or say, could I have another topic, please? That's not going to happen. So I'm here to help you work through those topics. These are the current topics for 2024, the ones that I believe are tricky, problematic for test takers. But hey, you guys are the ones who are in the best position to let me know which topics are giving you problems. And very often it comes down to either you don't have an idea, and I'm going to paraphrase that. It's not just having an idea, but it's having an idea that lends itself to language. So you don't have to have this convoluted, complicated, over-the-top idea, but you do have to have an idea that allows you to use vocabulary and language because it is a language test. Very often I say this when you are asked to talk about a piece of art. You don't have to talk about the Mona Lisa, and please don't use that cheap trick of, I saw the Mona Lisa and I felt her eyes following me around the room. That is a model answer that has been memorized and repeated hundreds of times, and you're going to end up with a band 5 for that. When talking about a piece of art, you need to talk about the artist, the background, the foreground, maybe the use of color, bold colors, what type of art it is, oil, watercolor. Is it a portrait? Is it a landscape? I didn't have to talk about the Mona Lisa. I can talk about anything using the right vocabulary. Of course, if you'd like to talk about the Mona Lisa, go ahead, but talking about the Mona Lisa is not going to give you your score, the band 7, 8, or 9. Using the language, the right language, language related to the topic, to the theme, language related to art is what's going to give you your score. Just like in this topic, language related to waiting, anticipation, how you feel when you're waiting for something. Are you calm? Are you relaxed? Are you tearing your hair out? Are you on pins and needles? These are the phrases, these are the words, this is the lexical resource that's going to boost your score. So choose a topic that lends itself to telling a story. I hope that makes sense. If it does, please comment below, please engage and join this community. I am committed to working through as many IELTS speaking topics as possible, but your help is required. I want to know what's driving you crazy. I want to know which are the topics that you simply do not want to get in the test. And then by the time I have dismantled it and put it together for you, you're going to hope that's the topic that you get, because you're going to have the vocabulary, the ideas, and you're going to know how to create answers. And now, if you're ready, let's dive into the video that has been created for you around this topic. Once again, I'm your host, Nas, IELTS accredited, CELTA certified, and at your service, here to hold your hand and guide you towards IELTS Band 8, Band 9. I mean, seriously, sky's the limit, right? Thanks for watching. Now grab that notebook and start working hard and smart.
Have you ever found yourself waiting for something for what seemed like an eternity? How did you describe that experience? The ability to vividly articulate experiences and emotions in English can be crucial, particularly in speaking tests. Today, we're delving into how to create a compelling response for describe a time when you had to wait a long time for something. By the end of this video, you'll be armed with advanced vocabulary and idioms to describe anticipation, and a step-by-step guide on how to form your answer. First, it's crucial to analyze the question at hand. The question is, describe a time when you had to wait a long time for something. It may seem simple, yet it houses 3 subparts that need to be addressed to construct a comprehensive answer. The first part is, when this happened. This requires you to think back to a specific time period or event. It's crucial to clearly establish this context as it sets the stage for your narrative. Next, we have what you were waiting for. This is the core of your story. It's not just about stating the object or event, but also about expressing the significance it held for you. The third subpart is how you felt. This is where you delve into emotions, describing your feelings of anticipation or impatience. It's this emotional resonance that makes your story engaging and relatable. Now that you've dissected the question, it's time to brainstorm vocabulary and ideas. Words are the colors with which we paint our verbal pictures. So let's dive into the palette of language and pull out 6 advanced vocabulary words related to anticipation. First, we have premonition. A premonition is a strong feeling that something is about to happen, especially something unpleasant. For example, as the day of the job interview approached, I had a premonition that I wouldn't get the job. Second is foreboding. This is a feeling that something bad will happen. Despite the sunny weather, I had a sense of foreboding about the trip. Third, we have apprehension. This refers to anxiety or fear that something bad will happen. The thought of waiting for the exam results filled me with apprehension. Fourth is prospect. This means the possibility or likelihood of some future event occurring. The prospect of waiting another hour was daunting. 5th is expectation. This is a strong belief that something will happen or be the case. I had high expectations while waiting for the concert to start. Lastly, anticipation. This is a feeling of excitement about something that is going to happen. The anticipation was palpable as we waited for the doors to open. Now let's move on to idioms. First up, we have on tenterhooks. This means being in a state of suspense or agitation because of uncertainty. I was on tenterhooks waiting for the letter of acceptance. Second is waiting with bated breath. This means waiting anxiously or excitedly. I was waiting with bated breath for the curtain to rise. Third, the calm before the storm. This refers to a quiet or peaceful period before a period of activity or trouble. The hours waiting for the results were like the calm before the storm. Fourth, counting the minutes. This means waiting anxiously for something. I was counting the minutes until the party started. Fifth, hold your horses. This means to be patient and wait. My mum told me to hold my horses until the announcement was made. Lastly, time stands still. This means that time seems to pass very slowly. As I waited for my name to be called, it felt like time stood still. With these words and idioms at your disposal, your descriptions will be more vivid and engaging. But having the right words is not enough. You need to know how to use them. So let's dive into the art of structuring your answer effectively. Begin with a captivating introduction that sets the scene. Here, you might want to use some of our brainstormed vocabulary or idioms to pique interest. Pause this video and write down as many as you remember. For instance, you could start with, I recall a time when I was on tenterhooks, waiting for... This not only introduces the topic of waiting, but also incorporates our vocabulary related to anticipation. The examiner will sit up and take notice of that strong introduction. You have made it clear that you are not Band 6. Next, let's move on to the main body of the story. This is where you delve into the details. Tell your audience what you were waiting for. Make it interesting, make it relatable. You could say, I was waiting for my acceptance letter from the university, my passport to a world of opportunities. Here, the idiom passport to a world of opportunities adds depth to your answer. Then, describe the circumstances. Where were you? Who were you with? Pause this video and create a sentence that covers these questions. What was happening around you? For instance, I was back at home, the tension palpable in the air as my family shared my anticipation. Now let's talk about feelings. Brainstorm 10 words or phrases related to how you were feeling. How did you feel while waiting? Did your emotions change over time? Perhaps you can say, I was a bundle of nerves oscillating between hope and fear. As days turned into weeks, my patience wore thin, but hope remained my constant companion. Finally, we reach the conclusion. This is where you reveal the outcome. Did you get what you were waiting for? How did you feel then? Here's an example. Finally, the day arrived when I held the letter in my trembling hands. Unfolding it, I found the golden words. You have been accepted. Relief and joy washed over me like a tidal wave. Remember, it's important to keep your language engaging and varied throughout. Use a mix of our brainstormed vocabulary and idioms to keep your audience hooked. Now that we have a structured answer, let's talk about how to make it flow. A well-structured answer is like a well-rehearsed dance. Every move leads to the next. Now that we've brainstormed vocabulary and structured our answer, it's time to ensure that each part seamlessly connects to the next. This is where transition and lead-in phrases come into play. Transition phrases are the bridges that connect our ideas. They guide our listener, ensuring they can follow our train of thought. For instance, when moving from the part where you describe what you were waiting for to how you felt, you might say, having shared what I was waiting for, let me delve into how I felt. This phrase signals to your listener that you're shifting from one idea to another, providing a smooth journey through your narrative. Lead-in phrases, on the other hand, are like a drum roll. They introduce and highlight your next point. If you're about to share the climax of your waiting experience, you could say, the moment I've been leading up to finally arrived when... These phrases create anticipation, keeping your listener engaged. Now let's look at some examples in context. Imagine you're describing the long wait for your university acceptance letter. You've just detailed the moment you sent off your application. To transition to the next part, you could say, after sealing the envelope and sending it off, a new chapter of anticipation began. This phrase links the act of sending your application with the ensuing wait. Then, to lead into the moment you received your acceptance letter, you might say, "The day I'd been anxiously awaiting finally came when a letter, bearing the university's seal, landed on my doorstep." This phrase builds up the anticipation, holding your listener's attention as you reveal the climax of your story. By using these transition and lead-in phrases, your answer becomes more coherent and fluent. They guide your listener, ensuring your narrative is easy to follow, and they build anticipation, keeping your listener engaged. They are the threads that weave your thoughts into a captivating narrative, making your answer not just a response, but a story. With these transition and lead-in phrases, your answer will flow like a well-written story. Now you have all the tools you need to answer the question. And what a journey it has been! We've covered a lot of ground together, so let's take a moment to look back and recap the main points we've journeyed through. We started off by understanding the question. Remember, it's not just about knowing what the question is asking, but also about diving deep and understanding the nuances. The more you understand the question, the better equipped you are to provide a well-thought-out and relevant answer. So never underestimate the power of understanding. Next, we moved on to brainstorming vocabulary and idioms. Here, we introduced 6 advanced pieces of vocabulary focused on anticipation, and 6 idioms to add that extra punch to your answer. Words like anticipation, expectation, prospect, foresee, predict, and envision, and idioms like on tenterhooks, waiting with bated breath, the calm before the storm, counting the minutes, watched pot never boils, and time stood still. These are powerful tools in your language arsenal. Use them wisely and your answer will surely resonate with the examiner. Then we delved into structuring your answer. We broke down the process into manageable chunks, discussing each part of the question and brainstorming vocabulary and ideas for when this happened, what you were waiting for, and how you felt. We suggested 6 pieces of language for each sub-question, providing you with a robust framework to build your answer upon. After that, we explored how to link these parts together using transition and lead-in phrases. Remember, smooth transitions are like the glue that holds your answer together. They guide your listener through your answer, making it easier for them to follow your train of thought. Phrases like, to begin with, moving on to, furthermore, in addition, on the other hand, and to wrap things up, can work wonders in creating a coherent and fluent narrative. Now it's up to you. All the tools, all the strategies, and all the tips are at your disposal. It's time for you to put them into practice. Remember, mastery is not achieved overnight. It's a process, and practice is a vital part of that process. So don't hesitate. Start practicing, start refining, start mastering, and always remember, practice makes perfect. So why wait? Start practicing now.